Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is a phenomenal game. I've beaten it now, and I would say it's one of the best Xbox releases in recent times. Very, very good. Machine Games knocked it out of the park, in my opinion, and I was not surprised. If you watched my videos leading up to the release of it, I had no fear that Machine Games was going to do well. As a fan of the Wolfenstein games, they have a strong pedigree, in my opinion, just making great games with a good story, good gameplay, good enemies and character development and everything. And they did the same thing here with Indiana Jones. And the question that a lot of people have with this game is, how well did it do? Did it sell well? Did it blow the charts away? Is it going to be a top selling game here over the next couple of weeks or so? And we've seen some numbers already for Indiana Jones. In no means did it beat any games on Steam. Was it a high charting games on Steam in terms of peak players? I think there was like 12,000 or so, or 12,300, which was like the top 24-hour peak, something along those lines. And you always have people wondering, is that really indicative of how well has this game done commercially, especially a game that launches day one into Xbox Game Pass? We also saw numbers for the Xbox charts, and it was actually at the top of the charts and one of the most played single player experiences on Xbox. So we didn't really know exactly if this game was doing very well commercially, but we do have more information now that does show Indiana Jones and the Great Circle did well. It sold well. A lot of this is going to be people playing it on Xbox. The Xbox carried this release. If you're basing it off of the Steam numbers, you would assume that it was more people in the Xbox ecosystem jumping in and playing it. We also have a bit more information about Bethesda games and Skyrim and some thoughts and claims that it would be better in Unreal Engine 5. And Dead Space 4 could have happened, but EA shot down Glenn Schofield's pitch for Dead Space 4. But we will start off here, and we are going to talk about Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. So sales is always something people want to talk about when first-party games do get released. There's always that debate as to whether console exclusives or just exclusives in general push the platform forward and get more people to buy into it. I've said this multiple times on my channel, and I stand by it, and I think the numbers really support it. It's that exclusives play definitely an important role in selling a platform and getting people to buy into it, but it is by no means the main thing that tells people to go out and buy a console, or gets people to go out and buy a console. It's probably more of the minority of people, and I would consider myself in that minority group, that go out and buy a specific device because of the exclusives that are on it. I have a PS5 literally only for the exclusives. I don't play any multi-plats on that console whatsoever. And if it didn't have any exclusives at all, I probably wouldn't have a PlayStation 5. But my Series X and Series S and my PC and everything, that is literally to play everything that is available. But most people go into a store, they're looking to pick up a console, and it's, why do I want this? It's because of the price, the convenience. Does it play Fortnite? That is a lot of people that pick up consoles these days. That is why they pick it up. And by Fortnite, I also mean like other games as a service, multiplayer games like Call of Duty, Madden, college football, which was the top selling game. People were literally going and buying that. But it is not because of console exclusives as the main reason people do buy games. But when it does come to exclusives or first party titles from these big companies like Xbox and PlayStation, people want to know, how well does it do, and are people supporting it, especially with a service like Xbox Game Pass. With Xbox Game Pass, things has completely changed, and there's always going to be that question of how much does it cannibalize sales. Well, with Indiana Jones, we do have more information here. This is tweeted out by Clute, and it's from a post from Matt Piscatella, who I believe is only on Blue Sky now. So you have to get these screenshots here to get his information on X. But he tweets this out: Indiana Jones and the Great Circle sales engagement is the #2 best-selling game last week in the US and the #3 most played game on the Xbox Series X and S. Great opening for a phenomenal video game. The fake outrage about the Steam numbers turned out to be baseless. Adventure games like Indiana Jones and more closely aligned with the consoles than PC. And this was Matt Piscatella's specific tweet. He says, anyways, don't usually post stuff about weekly rankings, but Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was the #2 best-selling video game for the week ending December 14th in US dollars, trailing only Call of Duty Black Ops 6. So that tells you right there that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle as a launch right now has been successful commercially, sales-wise, even with a lot of the outrage and FUD going around because of the Steam numbers. If it tells you anything, is that Steam numbers aren't always the main indicator as to how successful a game is, especially games that are launching day one into Xbox Game Pass. So great to see, because it is a phenomenal game. It is very, very good. And I was really hoping that it would do well so that they could pursue more titles like this going forward. and maybe get another Indiana Jones games here from Machine Games. It reminds me of Astrobot. Astrobot kind of is the opposite. Astrobot, a phenomenal game from PlayStation, one of their best first-party games that they've put out. And the attachment rate for it just was very low. Like 1.5 million was the last number or so that we did see for the sales of that. And you have to ask yourself, even though it won Game of the Year, it did help increase the overall sales. I believe there is a new stat out there that it went from like 15th to 7th since it got the award for Game of the Year. But that is another game that is phenomenal, but attachment rates to the PlayStation console, I don't think is going to cut it from the PlayStation side. I would say the saving grace for a game like Astrobot is that it probably costs significantly less to develop over a game like Indiana Jones. So the sales need to be much higher for a game like Indy for Xbox and Machine Games to get that green light to continue to develop this stuff, especially with everything that's going on within the industry right now. And then we have this here from my friend Carl from the RNG Gaming Podcast saying, I want to say this, it's been very hard for me to find a physical option last Saturday. It was sold out on Amazon, Best Buy, and Target. I was able to get one from Walmart, and I've kind of seen that as well with the physical versions of Indiana Jones. I'm just not sure like how big of an issue that is in terms of, did they just not make enough physical versions of it because of how digital Xbox is, or are the physical copies actually doing very well? Maybe it's because it's a licensed game. People want to have that in their hands to be able to show it off, keep it put on their shelf, all of that stuff. I know I've seen specifically the limited edition version, very hard to get. And then obviously the collector's edition, if you didn't pre-order that, you're probably not getting one of those. But the base physical version, I've seen also popping in and out here in Canada on Amazon. I haven't checked every store, so maybe it's just Amazon. But yeah, I wonder if that has anything to do here. That would be showing that the sales are also doing well on the physical side of this game. And if we will ever get a breakdown, that would be cool to see. All right, Bethesda games. As we know, Bethesda have some great engines. id Tech is a phenomenal engine, and I think Xbox needs to use it for more of their first-party titles outside of Bethesda from their other studios and everything. But you have to ask about Skyrim going forward and what they're going to be using here for Elder Scrolls 6. But Starfield, a lot of people thought that the creation engine was kind of looking dated and old, and people are hoping that they would potentially go to something else. And one of those engines could be UE5, although I doubt that they will do this. Bethesda has incredible engines like id Tech. I think Xbox needs to take id Tech and give it to all of their studios, not just the Bethesda side of things, but other first-party studios, because you can get some phenomenal results of that, as we have seen from Indiana Jones. But we have here that a claim from a former Skyrim artist that is saying that Bethesda games would actually be better on UE5. This is speaking to Reese Riley of Kiwi Talks, mentioning the games ending up better on UE5, saying, having made open world games with both engines, to me, it's like absolutely no question that I think things would end up being better. I would be shocked if that did happen, because I don't know people who also have trouble changing their minds sometimes, where they made a decision at some point and it did make sense at the time, but I think it's important to reevaluate tech. And further goes on to talk about spending a lot of time during the development of projects like Starfield and why he left partway through the development, saying a lot of stuff was done on Starfield was trying to get all of these rendering systems, the animation systems sort of up to snuff, and it makes it really hard to even actually make the game. So the question about Unreal Engine 5, I think, is definitely going to be in discussion more and more at Xbox, especially when we're seeing Halo jumping over to Unreal Engine 5. They're getting out of the Slipspace engine. The major reason they're doing it is because they want it to be easier to develop and hire more talent who have more experience with an engine that is more widely known, which would be Unreal Engine 5. UE5 looks great. There's a lot of games that look phenomenal on it. We are seeing it kind of, I think, push the consoles to its max, the current generation consoles right now. So I wonder, going forward for the next couple of years, more games that do release full UE5, how that is going to look on the Xbox Series X and the base PlayStation 5, and then also the PS5 Pro. Will PSSR help that? Will developers be able to turn that on for all those games? As of right now, we are seeing some of them turn it off. And UE5 is going to be, I think, one of the main engines that we will see a lot of games going forward in. So if Bethesda were to ever switch over, it would probably be very difficult and very hard, because of everything that has already been created with the creation engine. And the likelihood of this is extremely low when they're probably already developing a lot of assets and using stuff for Elder Scrolls 6 based off of stuff created in the previous engine. So who knows if this would make any sense, but if it helps get their games out faster, I think a lot of people would actually be for that, because it's many years here between releases of their mainline franchises like the Fallouts and the Elder Scrolls game. And finally, Dead Space 4 we potentially could have had it, or at least started to get in development. Glenn Schofield says that EA turned him down when it comes to Dead Space 4. This news comes from a live stream by Dan Allen Gaming a couple of weeks ago. And he sat down with Dead Space creator Glenn Schofield, Brett Robbins, and Christopher Stone. And they said this: we tried to actually, the three of us, to pitch Dead Space 4. And it goes on here to say, well, we didn't go too deep. They just said, we're not interested right now. We appreciated it, blah, blah, blah. And we respected their opinion. And he finished on the topic with, we have some ideas, with the trio all saying that they would return for a Dead Space 4. So Dead Space 4 could have happened. They turned it down. I don't know if that would change now with the fact that the Dead Space remake did well. A lot of people love that, and it definitely shows there's a huge interest for this franchise to come back. Glenn Schofield also was the guy who opened up the studio to create, so Striking Force Studio, I believe it's called, to create Callisto Protocol, which did not do well, and then left that studio. So right now, they're probably thinking, how can we get back in the industry with something brand new, potentially go back to EA and develop a Dead Space 4, which if they did do that, it would do very well. I think Dead Space 4 would be a commercial success, and a lot of people would be excited about it. There'd be tons of hype if they were to announce it. So for EA, I feel like at this point, it's probably on their radar. It's just, how do they slot it in with all the games that they do have in development? But I'll end the video there. If you did enjoy this video, hit that thumbs up. If you're new here, hit that subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Bye.